What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Rooted in Reptiles. In today's episode, we're going to cover how to get your skinks this big and this nice in just a few months. Stick with us, guys. So the first thing that I want to do is go over a good feeding regimen based on the age of an animal and its size. So as a baby, you're going to be wanting to feed every single day. This will allow your baby to be getting all the food that it can. As babies, they're more nimble, they're more agile, they're able to run around and catch stuff all the time versus, an adult that's a little bit heavier, a little bit lazier. They're going to just be wanting to eat some plants and some dead stuff that they find laying around. Whereas a baby, they're going to definitely be more agile and they're definitely going to be more willing to run and chase prey. So as a baby, feed every single day. This will ensure that they're growing good. So as they continue to get older, you're going to want to switch over to feeding every other day. And this will ensure, that they're getting, again, a good amount of food in them. As they're getting bigger, obviously they're going to be less agile and less willing to run around and catch prey. And so their feedings are going to be cut back. Their metabolism is going to start slowing down, and they're able to better retain the energy that they took in. So as they're getting older, in like their juvenile and young adult stage, I would say feed every other day. And then once they get to be an adult, feed once to twice a week. They're slower, their metabolisms aren't going as fast, and this way, they're not getting too much, they're not getting overweight. And as an adult, you're going to be wanting to offer some dry kibble as well. You can kind of put that in just a bowl by itself, and they can kind of free eat that, and that way they can just get a little snack whenever they want it. But feed your wet foods once a week, or to twice a week. I would say twice a week if you're not going to be offering any kibble. If you're going to be offering kibble in there for them to free eat, then I would say once a week would probably be pretty good for you guys. So moving on from that, I'm going to be going through the foods that I'm using, and I'm going to be showing you those to you guys. These brands have a ton of different lines in them, and so I know for me, I need to be able to see the label to be able to match it up with exactly what I'm trying to buy in the store. They can be pretty confusing, and the lines might say that they're the same thing, but they might have a little bit something different from line to line. I found that something will say, oh, this is a beef whatever, and it has tuna in it, and you don't want to be feeding fish, so it's important that you read your labels, and being able to put some of these different foods out there that are good and fish and grain free should be a great help for you guys. I know that when I first started, I was just going through stores and taking pictures of the different foods on the shelf and sending them to Austin because he would say, oh, feed Wellness. Well, I got to the store and Wellness had like 5 different types of food, and I was like super confused. And then once I kind of got onto it, you can catch on to what you're looking for and what's good. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll start off with cat food, and then we'll move to dog food. I'm going to start off with this Evo 95. This is a wet cat food. This is in a pate form. I really like to stick to pates. The skinks seem to eat them better, and they seem a little bit softer for them. There's no big chunks for them to potentially choke on, and they really like this stuff. So this Evo 95 comes in a duck and gravy recipe and a chicken and turkey recipe and gravy. They really like this stuff. These come in 5.5 ounce cans, and I believe the duck is like $2.99 a can. The chicken and turkey is cheaper. It's like $1.99 maybe. But this is definitely good stuff here. It's 95% animal protein, which is a big thing that I look for in my foods. I want as much animal protein as possible. This way you're not getting filler, you're not getting any kind of crap that you don't want. Also, when you're looking for food, you want grain-free. You don't want any grains in your food. You want to stick away from grains as best as you possibly can. And you also do not want to be buying anything with fish in it. Definitely stick away from fish in the sea. I've heard that you can feed some like freshwater fish potentially in small amounts spread out, but I try and stick away from it. This has, if you look at the ingredients, and you should always be reading your ingredients, just take the time, stand there while you're in the store before you even buy it. So you don't start off like me, buy a bunch of stuff that you think looks good, get home, start reading ingredients, and realize that you need to turn it, or that you need to take it all back because it has fish hidden in it. So the most fish that I feed is both of these Evo cans have fish oil in them. I don't believe it's much. It's listed pretty far down on the ingredients, or it's probably like the 5th or 6th ingredient in it. And I just don't like to feed fish. This is the only food that I feed that even has fish oil in it. So this is definitely a good choice. It's been working out great for me. I would recommend this Evo, and I have not had any ill effects from it. So good one here, guys. This comes in small cans, so if you only have one, you know, you're not wasting a lot. But you know, for people who have multiples, you're going to have to feed a couple cans of this. So moving on, another one that I really like that is a good value is this Wellness Beef and Chicken formula. This is a cat food again. This is grain-free, and I like it because it's a mix of beef and chicken. A lot of times you're finding beef alone or chicken alone. I like to offer as much variety as possible, but obviously who doesn't want to save as much money as possible, because the better you can keep your costs down, the more effective your breeding is, the more effective the more effectively you can cover your costs. Or even just as a pet, you know, you don't want to be spending a bajillion dollars, but it is important to get good quality food and to be able to provide your skinks with the best possible health that you can. So this beef and chicken formula, I really, really like this, but there's a trick with this one, guys. So this is a pate form, but it is pretty thick. So when you crack this can open, your pate is going to be somewhere like a really heavy peanut butter consistency, and the skinks do not like that, or at least mine don't. I fed this just how it came out of the can once, and they took a bite and they were like, what the frick is this? So my animals prefer it if it's a little bit smoother for them. It's easier to eat that way. I could tell that it was sticking to their mouths when they were eating it. So what I'm doing with this is I'm taking this, and I'll feed half of this a day. And this is cheap. It's like $1.99 maybe. Might be even less than that when you buy it by the case. But this is a 12.5 ounce can. So this is a good value. Definitely a good one to have in your feeding schedule. It'll help save you money, and that's important. So this is what I'm doing with this, because it's thicker and it's heavier and it's gummier. I'm taking and I'm adding water to it. I add it in a bowl, that way you don't lose like any of the amount of gravy or nutrients or water or anything like that. So you don't want to just like pour water and like put too much water in and then have to pour it out, because you're pouring away some of that flavor for them, you're pouring away some of the nutrients, and you don't want to be doing that. So add water to this in small quantities. I'll turn my sink, I have well water, so I don't have any chlorine in my water, and I'll just turn it down really, really low, and I'll just trickle water in, and then I'll stir it, and I'll trickle a little more in until I get it to a nice smooth consistency where it's far more liquidy for them, and they eat this like crazy then. So this is definitely good, but for me, I have to water this down. I can't feed it just like it is. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not a big deal, but you should just be keeping it in mind if you are going to be feeding this. So moving on from that, we're going to go to this EVENGERS. These are dog and cat foods. I try and get as much variety as possible. Really, it kind of gets repetitive because you can only get so many animals ground up and put into a can. So this EVENGERS I can get in chicken, quail, rabbit, duck, and buffalo. They really like this. It's a little bit thicker, so you might need to add a little bit of water, especially with like the buffalo. But it's not bad. It's cheap too, which is great. But this is very good. I like that this is super minimalistic in its ingredients. Like this chicken is chicken, water sufficient for processing, liver, and gargum. So it's literally 4 things. And they are great. I love feeding this stuff. It gives me a good variety. One thing that you'll need to keep in mind is with the rabbit, it is fairly oily. And the skinks do not like that oil so much. So when you get this, you're going to have to pour that oil off of it. Rabbit meat is naturally a very oily, gamey meat. So you need to keep that in mind when you're dealing with this, that they aren't going to like the oil if you just flip this over and plop it in a dish for one. You want to kind of take some of that oil off of it. But I like these because I can get variety. I can get these ingredients by themselves, so I can get each meat by itself. It's not mixed with anything else, and I feel like that's important. It allows me to really control what they're taking in and give them a good variety of foods. So the next food that I'm going to be showing you guys is wild callings. This is technically a dog food. You can get this in a cat food, but they're smaller cans, and the protein content is 0.5% difference between the dog and the cat food. This stuff is coming in a 13.2 ounce can. I'm buying this for $2.99 a can. And I like this stuff. It gives me a little bit more variety. I have this in lamb, pork, and alligator. Funny how the food chain works when everything's in a can. But this is good stuff here. This is 96% animal. It's all grain free. Nothing I'm feeding has grain in it. So if I forgot to mention that with something, everything is grain free. The EVENGERS is grain free. The Wellness is grain free. The Evo is grain free. Wild Callings is grain free. So I like this stuff. I like that I can get this in more variety. So that way I'm spreading my diet out. You know, I'm feeding multiple different things. It gives them nutrients from multiple different types of animals. And that way, you know, they're getting a good variety. Variety is the spice of life, and you know, I wouldn't want to be eating the same thing every single day in a row. So I feel like it's good to, you know, get more variety. One thing that I should point out when feeding these larger cans is your food is only good for 3 days after you open this can, and you should be taking it out of the can. Don't like scoop half of the can out, feed it, and leave the other half in the can for 2 more days, because I forget what they said, but there's some type of a process that goes on that makes this food go bad after it's opened and left inside the can. It's a type of bacteria, I believe, that gets into it. Don't quote me on that. But they were really stressing that you put this in a glass dish and cover it and put it in the fridge. Put it in a Ziploc bag, or put saran wrap or something over it if you're not going to feed the whole can at once. I would not recommend feeding anything over 3 days old. It'll start to go bad. And I don't like eating bad food, and I don't imagine that these animals like eating bad food. So this stuff is good. I like that I can get it in lamb and alligator and pork. they have this in chicken and turkey and duck and whatever else you want, salmon, all kinds of stuff. But again, don't feed fish. And I feel like it's kind of repetitive if I bought the same animals through every single brand, because it's basically the same stuff. So I try and spread it out and just get whatever I can that's different from each brand. And that way it kind of gives me good variety again. So moving on from the wild callings, we're going to move on to something that I haven't fed yet, just because I'm not currently feeding it dog food. But this is Signature, and it's a kangaroo formula. So figure Australian skinks might be coming across a dead kangaroo every once in a while, and this is their dead kangaroo. This is grain-free and it's chicken-free. Not as though that matters that it's chicken-free, but it is. So this is kangaroo, ground up and put into a can. It has all kinds of different vegetables and vitamins and stuff like that in it. But this is something that I thought was, again, going to give them good variety, something that they might find naturally in the wild. And so I have yet to try this. It's fairly expensive. I think it's like $4 for this can. So that's, I mean, it's not bad. It'll be cheaper, you know, if you buy it by a case, but this is something that I just got for variety's sake. I'm sure that they'll appreciate it, having something new to eat. I'm really excited to try it. This Signature is supposed to be a pretty good brand, and I'm hoping that this works out and that they really like it. So I'll get back to you guys on that one. We'll go over, I guess, or I'll at least let you guys know how it goes with them. All these foods I'm picking up at Agway, I believe. There might be a couple foods from other places, but a lot of my shopping is done at Agway. It's like 3 minutes from my house, so it's easy for me. And they can order me whatever I want, which is nice. So that's the Signature. Moving on from that, we're going to be getting back into wellness, but this is the dog food now. This is beef, chicken, turkey, and lamb. These are big cans, again. Thankfully, you know, big cans, you can feed more than one animal. And for people with multiple animals, it's cheaper for us. This is fairly cheap. I believe this is $2 a can, big cans. So, you know, that Evo is a small can, a 5.5 ounce can for $2 or $3 for the duck and $2 for the chicken and turkey. And this is like $2 for a 13.2 ounce can. So you're getting over double for the same money. So I like this, but it's important that you guys are feeding cat food when they're babies and juveniles, and then switching over to dog food as they become adults. So this is good. I like this stuff. I'm sure that I'll like it. It might be thick. I'm not sure. I haven't opened it yet. Opened one to find out, but you might need to be adding water to this, like I'm adding to the chicken and beef cat food that comes from wellness. So just keep that in mind. You know, if it's too thick, they're probably not going to like it. If it's going to stick to their mouth, they're probably not going to like it. So having something that's a little bit softer and a little bit soupier almost for them, they're going to eat and clean up a lot better for you guys. One thing that I forgot to say is I feed so that way they can eat until they're full, instead of eating until I say that they're done. You know, so I feed a little bit more than they can eat, especially as they're growing. I like to see a little bit of food left over in their dish, so that way I know that they ate until they were full versus eating until they had no food left. I believe that this allows them to grow at their own rate, and it doesn't really dictate their growth rate. You know, they can grow as naturally and as fast as they can by eating as much as they want versus eating whatever I'm restricting them to. So keep that in mind. You know, it's easier with this than it is, you know, if you're one of the people who wants to feed them roaches or something like that. So just bear that in mind. But I like this. I'm not afraid to feed this. I'm using foods that, you know, Austin has been using for a long time now and that he trusts. I stick away from brands that he doesn't use, and brands that have had issues with their foods, recalls, stuff like that. I don't like that. I want my animals to be as healthy as they possibly can be, and I feel like putting them at risk of eating fish with mercury in it from the ocean or anything like that is not good. So stick with what you guys know. Stick with what's good. Don't be afraid to spend the money to buy stuff that is better quality than just going to Walmart and paying 50 cents for a can of cat food that's full of crap. And just spend the money. You want your animals to be healthy. It's clearly working for me. The Hypo Black and Gray that I started this video off with was born April 25th, and it's huge. I mean, it's grown extremely fast, and that's good. You don't want your animals small. You don't want them to be too small, too weak. Let them grow. Let them get big, and they'll be happier that way. You don't want them fat, but you want them big, and you want them to be nice, healthy, conditioned animals. So moving on from the wellness, we have this Blue Wilderness. This is again a dog food. It's grain-free. No fish in these. I've read the ingredients on the backs of them a lot here, and I have these in a chicken or duck and chicken grill, hearty beef stew, and red meat dinner. So I like these. They're grain free. Obviously that's what you want. And I believe that these are pretty good food. I haven't fed them yet, but I know that Austin feeds Blue Wilderness, and so I'm not afraid to try it. I don't believe that these are necessarily in a pate. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. But when I hear things like stew, I'm thinking of something that's maybe smaller chunks in like a gravy or something like that, or in a very thick soup type of food. So I have yet to try these. I'm really interested to try them, and I'll be letting you guys know what I think of them. But this is a brand that Austin recommended, and I trust him, and if he says it's good, then I'm sure it's fine. So don't be afraid to try this. This is fairly cheap again. I believe this is like $2 or $3 a can. They're 12.5 ounce cans, so you're getting a lot of food for your money, and I like that. So moving on from that, that's all the dog and cat food that I have. One thing that I don't have on hand, but will be getting when I'm feeding kibble, is Wild Callings makes a kangaroo kibble. It's extremely hard for me to find kangaroo around here. Austin has a freeze-dried kangaroo that he can get. So I can get it, but we're not sure that the brands match up. I forget what the brand is that Agway can get me, but I know that Wild Callings makes a kangaroo food, a kangaroo kibble, and so I'm definitely going to be getting that and trying it. I like feeding kangaroo because it's not common. It's expensive, but it's not commonly found in foods, so being able to give them that, I really like that. So I'm definitely jumping on the opportunity to feed that. I'll let you guys know again how that works for me, and I'm sure it's going to work great. Wild Callings is a great brand, and I am definitely looking forward to trying it. So moving on to that is something that's kind of popped up onto the food radar here a couple months ago now, is this Repashi's Bluey Buffet. This is a powdered food formulated specifically for blue-tongued skinks that you add water to. It forms a gel, and it's 1 part this, 2 parts water. So this is a 3 ounce little bottle of it, and so I would be making 9 ounces of food when you add the water to it. So a little bit smaller than one of the cans of dog food, but I know that Ray is feeding a ton of this stuff right now. I would add D3 to it. D3 is bad in large quantities, but I believe that it would be good to add this to it. This is a complete diet, I believe, in the sense that it is made of foods that they're going to eat, but I would still add, if you're going to feed this by itself, I would still add D3 powder to it. So I have yet to try this. I would like to try it at some point. I have 2 of these bottles of it that Ray sent me, but I just haven't ever gotten around to trying it. When I go over the supplements that I'm using, you're going to see that I'm using Repashy D3 calcium, and I really love that stuff. So I'm assuming that I'm going to like this. I know Ray loves it. I know everybody who's tried it loves it. So I'm going to have to definitely crack this open here and use it. This, Ray is feeding, he's mixing this, he's turning it into the gel, and then he's smashing it into a paste. He chops it all up and then he crushes it all and makes this really thick paste of it. And that's how he feeds it. I've seen people who are taking this and pouring this into molds and feeding the little molded foods. I guess they're like little chocolate molds or something like that maybe. But that's what they're pouring this into. So it's kind of cool to see people feeding little shapes of whatever, of this stuff, to their skinks. And they seem to love it. I know Alan feeds this in his videos, or he feeds his other gel foods. He'll cut it into thin worm-like strips and feed it to them in the strips. So I would assume that this stuff is good. I am not doubting it, but I have yet to try it, to be honest. So I'll let you guys know what I think of this, but a lot of people are using it. It seems to be working for a lot of people, so wouldn't be afraid to try it by any means. So moving on from foods, I'm going to go over what supplements I'm using now. So I'm going to start off with my calcium. This is Repashy Super Cal HYD. This is a calcium that comes in where it has D3 in it. Repashy also makes a calcium without D3, but I'm loving this stuff. This is great stuff. I'm feeding for every roughly 5 to 6 ounces of food, I'm putting about 1.25 teaspoons to 1.5 teaspoons of this stuff in it. And I love it. It's super fine. It's super powdery. It's working great for me. So I definitely recommend this stuff, guys. I know that Repashy is known for making great products, and I believe that this stuff is good. This is their 17.6 ounce bottle. This comes in smaller bottles, definitely. And I believe that they recommend feeding this only for a year after it's open. So if there's anything left after a year, throw it away and buy a new bottle. Because I know that the nutrient and I guess you would say mineral or supplement value of it degrades over time after it's open. You're also supposed to keep this in the fridge. I keep this in the fridge as well as my multivitamin after it's opened. And this is great. I love it. Obviously I'm not using any UV at all, keeping my animals in racks. So this is working great. No UV. I'm feeding this stuff and a multivitamin. Feeding this stuff every feeding, so that's every other day they're getting this, and they're getting a multivitamin once a week. And awesome growth, perfect growth, and they're doing great for me, guys. So if you are unsure what calcium is good, I definitely recommend this stuff. You can buy it in bigger bottles, you can buy it in smaller bottles, so it can fit everyone's needs if you have one animal or if you have 500 animals. You know, this stuff is great and I love it, and I'm going to continue to use this stuff. Definitely recommend this. So moving on from my calcium, I'm currently feeding this ZooMeds Reptivite. I like this stuff. This is a 2-ounce bottle, but this is also available in a larger bottle, something larger like the Repashy 17-ounce bottle. I like this. I'm feeding this once a week, either on my Friday or Saturday feeding, depending on which day it falls. But this seems to be working for me. I definitely like it, but I am going to try the Repashy's multivitamin my next go around after I run out of this stuff. I'm going to order that and see how that works, because I really, really like their calcium. If the multivitamin I don't end up liking, I'll go back to this stuff, because this is working for me. You can get this at like Petco or wherever, and this is working. This gives them lots of minerals and vitamins and stuff that they need that they might not be finding in their food or out of just the calcium with D3. So I like this. It's good. It's been working for me. Definitely recommend it if you don't want to order offline from Repashy or something like that. I believe that the Petco that I have near me carries some of Repashy stuff, but they don't carry the Super Cow, and they don't have their multivitamin, I don't believe. But this one, I like this. Again, I am going to try the Repashy just because of how much I really genuinely love their calcium. So going back into foods, covering some stuff that can be fed that I don't feed. You know, you can feed stuff like dubia roaches. You can feed stuff like superworms or waxworms or night crawlers or pinkies. I've seen even larger mice fed. That's fine if you want to feed the more natural diet. But I'm finding that the animals that are fed strictly those diets don't look nearly as good or nearly as conditioned as animals that are fed the dog and cat food. I believe that the dog and cat food is a lot more raw protein, and it seems to be working great for me. I know the bigger guys are feeding dog and cat food, so I'm following their leads and going with what's working for them, because obviously I want it to work for me. So you can feed stuff like that. You can give stuff like that as treats, but I mean, I'm feeding strictly dog and cat food. I haven't wandered over into bugs or mice or anything like that at all, and I intend to stick with that and stay away from that type of stuff. Another thing that you can feed that obviously I don't have here to show you is raw meat. You can get ground chicken, ground turkey, ground beef. So if your animal's maybe a little bit thinner, for those of you who like to rescue animals, if you can get them eating some like 80-20 beef, just ground up, then that would be great to put some fat on the animal. A lot of protein, obviously, and the fat will be good for them. They'll put some weight back on. And if your animals are just a naturally leaner animal and you would like to get a little bit more bulk on them, again, you can feed that beef, and that'll help put a little bit of weight on them, added weight, I should say. I've used it. One thing that I learned the first time was if you just put a big slab of it in front of them, they're going to pick the thing up and they're going to drag it through their bedding, and then they're going to eat all the bedding that's on it. So after I saw that, after I gave it to the first one, just because I wanted to vary their diet, the thing picked it up and just drug it through the bedding and started eating it and eating all the cypress chips, and I was like freaking out. So what I did then was I took and I rolled it up into like little tiny dime size meatballs for them. And that way, you know, they would bite one and they would be able to pick just that small piece up and eat it versus picking the whole thing that's all stuck together and dragging that around. So that's just a little tip for you guys, little trick that you can keep them from eating their bedding or dragging big pieces of ground beef through their cage. Obviously, if that stuff breaks off, it can get all nasty and rotting, and you don't want that. It stinks. Rotting meat stinks, and you don't want that in your cages. You get bugs and flies and all kinds of stupid stuff that you don't want. So that's another thing that you can feed is raw meat. I saw that on Facebook, a question asked about feeding raw meat. You definitely, absolutely 100% can. And I will, and I do, and I just like to give it for the variety's sake, being able to feed them a great variety of things is what I like to do. So another thing that you should be adding as adults is some type of greens. You want dark leafy greens. You want to stick away from things like romaine. Iceberg you definitely don't want to feed. You don't want to feed broccoli. You don't want to feed spinach. But you can feed things like different fruits, banana, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries in small quantities. You don't want to just be putting this big things like this in front of them. But you can feed that sort of stuff. Mustard greens, anything dark and leafy, they'll eat, and that's good for them. They should be getting some form of greens as they are growing and developing. There is, I think it might be Signature that offers a like a vegetarian can. It has just fruits and vegetables in it. You know, you can, I guess you could feed that, but it's certainly not going to be as good as like fresh organic vegetables from Giant or something like that. So just keep that in mind, that they should be getting some form of salad. So if you guys have any further questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments section. And as always, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and stay tuned for next week's episode. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys.